Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! Yesterday was my last day at work before Christmas, and the customers were the most entitled people I have ever had to deal with. Karen made a scene because someone left a security tag on a kid's designer coat that she bought, and it went off at different shops and she kept being asked to show her receipt. Somehow she ignored the beeping noise it makes when she went out our doors with it the first time. But went off, I guess. She was waiting in a long line and then yelled at me for my assistance. She told me about the tag and I thought it would be as simple as removing it and letting her go on her merry way. Nope. First, she said, "Let me find the receipt, so y'all don't try to say I'm stealing." And of course, Karen couldn't find the receipt. She handed me receipts for everything, including way too expensive jewelry. Was she illiterate or just trying to flex on me that she could afford $1,199 pair of earrings? Pretty dumb either way, but whatever. I tell her it's okay, I have other ways of verifying that she bought it. I go about doing those and she's raising her voice saying, "Oh no, I'm not letting any of y'all say I stole this coat." I wanted to say something to the effect of, "The only way you're going to make it on AP's radar is if you make a giant scene." But that probably would have caused a big fuss, so I kept my mouth shut. I went back anyway, verified her purchase and removed the tag. End of story? Of course not. She goes off about how I need to waive the charge of the coat, $79, chump change compared to the $1,000 earrings, because I caused her so much embarrassment and suffering. Never mind the fact that I wasn't even the one to ring her up when she bought the coat. It was my fault somehow. I didn't think she was serious until she demanded to see a manager. So I called the manager, let her know what's going on, and I'm about to go about ringing other customers when she throws a sweater at me and demands that I exchange it for a different size. "Ma'am, can I please ring these other people up first? They were in line ahead of you."
"No, you cannot. You're going to take care of me first because the store wronged me and you're going to make it right."
This lady isn't much bigger than me. I may look budgy and soft, but I can hold my own. Still, she was getting combative and I really felt like she would have gotten physical if I had denied her demands. Any other day I would have let her hit me or punch me so I could have her removed from the store in handcuffs. But I was tired. Running on 4 hours of sleep, caffeine fumes, and disassociation. I just let it go because I would have crumpled if she tried anything. The other customers were not happy. As I began bending backwards to suck up to her like the good little retail puppet I am, I apologized to the other customers and said I'd be with them in just a moment. After I was done with her exchange, I started helping other customers. One customer was rightfully mad and said that the witch should have gotten back in line. Karen, now waiting for the manager while giving me death glares, snapped on the other customer and she threatened violence and actually went through with it and slapped him. Another customer got between them and managed to defuse the situation. Thank God for that woman, because I feel like Karen really would have fully attacked the other customer again. Eventually, a manager and the security came along and took care of her. They also called the cops and the assaulted customer ended up pressing charges against Karen for slapping her. And it was already easy to confirm it since everyone there saw it, and also there was CCTV. This customer is actually one I've had run-ins with before. She's a known hellraiser and loves to start any mess with employees. The first time I dealt with her, she was shouting at the manager from a leased department.
"I'm a lawyer. You really think I can't afford this dress? I could buy and sell you again and again and again. Try me, witch."
So weird. It became apparent to me last week that my roommates were trying to drive me out of the house to get one of their boyfriends in on the lease. When I told them I wanted to stay, they started staging incidents and messes around the house so they could yell at me for them And it all came to a head when they called a meeting with me 2 days ago. One of them had to hold the other back as she screamed at me that she hated me and I was not welcome in the building. They proceeded to tell me that I contributed nothing to the house and wasted their space and that they had gotten in with the landlady and convinced her to not renew my lease in June. I told them I'd talk to the landlady, and when they said they were the heads of the house, I laughed and went on with my day. I spoke to the landlady and she acknowledged that they were out of hand, and while she had given them the power to not renew my lease, she also said I could move out whenever and not pay for a single day I wasn't there. So yesterday when my roommates post left to visit family, they are sisters, I immediately called everyone I knew and vacated the house of everything I owned. I took the curtains, the rugs, all the cat toys and even the cat tower that I had made with my mom. I took all of their things off my shelves and other furniture and stacked them in the middle of the now nearly empty living room. I snapped pictures of everything, handed the keys to the landlady and immediately went away. They won't be back to the house until tomorrow. I've blocked them on everything so I won't get angry messages, but I'm sure their faces will be priceless when they come home to a half-empty house with hundreds of dollars in storage and furniture gone. So much for me not contributing anything to the house. Now I actually don't. They also have to find someone else to take up the lease till boyfriend can move in when June comes around, or they have to pick up my rent. Feels pretty good. My name is May and I'm a 22-year-old college student who works part-time at a busy coffee shop. I'm studying to become a teacher and I love working with kids, but in the meantime, I enjoy interacting with customers at the coffee shop and learning about their lives. One day, Karen stormed into the shop and marched up to the counter, demanding to be served before anyone else even though there was a long line of customers waiting patiently. I tried to explain that we had to serve the customers in the order they arrived, but Karen was not having it. A middle-aged lady who was waiting in line spoke up. "Excuse me, but there is a line here, and you have to wait your turn like everyone else," she said firmly. Karen turned to the lady with a sneer. "Who do you think you are telling me what to do? I don't have to listen to you or anyone else. I'm a VIP and I deserve special treatment," she said haughtily. The middle-aged lady was having none of it. "I don't care who you are or what you think you deserve. You have to wait your turn like everyone else. This isn't about you. It's about being fair and respectful to others," she said, her voice rising with anger. Karen was taken aback by the lady's assertiveness and started to argue with her, raising her voice and causing a scene. "You have no right to talk to me like that. I demand to speak to the manager and have you thrown out of here," she yelled. The middle-aged lady stood her ground, refusing to back down. "I am not going anywhere. You may be used to getting your way and not following rules, but not everyone is afraid of you. You need to learn to respect others and wait your turn like everyone else," she said firmly. As the argument between Karen and the middle-aged lady heated up, the other customers in the shop watched in shock and disbelief. It was clear that Karen was not used to being challenged or confronted, and she was struggling to deal with the situation. "I don't have the time for this," Karen snapped. "I have important things to do, and I shouldn't have to wait like everyone else. Get me a coffee now or I will speak to your manager." I took a deep breath and tried to stay calm, knowing that Karen was just being entitled and rude. "I'm sorry, but I can't serve you out of turn. We have to follow certain policies to keep things fair and organized." I explained as politely as possible, but Karen was not satisfied. She raised her voice and started causing a scene, demanding to speak to the manager and complaining about the inconvenience of having to wait like everyone else. As the argument between us escalated, I could see that Karen was getting more and more angry. Then she picked up a random customer's hot coffee and decided to throw it at me in a fit of rage, just because I dared to defy her orders. I was shocked and terrified as the hot coffee hit me and I felt a burning sensation on my skin. I immediately called out for help and my co-workers rushed to my aid, calling 911 immediately. Also, a big guy stepped in and blocked Karen's way, preventing her from fleeing the scene. As the ambulance arrived and I was taken away for treatment, the police were in the process of arresting Karen for assaulting me. They immediately took control of the situation and separated Karen from the other customers. They asked for witness statements and verified what had happened, paying particular attention to my co-worker's account of the incident. They told the police about Karen's entitled and rude behavior, how she demanded to be served before anyone else and caused a scene when I refused to break the rules. They also told them about the middle-aged lady who had stood up to the Karen and refused to let her cut the line. The police listened carefully and took notes, and it was clear that they were taking the matter seriously. After verifying all the details, they decided to make an arrest and charged Karen with assault for throwing the hot coffee at me. As charges were being pressed against Karen, I couldn't help but feel angry and hurt by what had happened. I wished for Karen to get the worst penalty possible for her actions and hoped that she would finally realize that she was not better than anyone else. I hope that Karen would get off her high horse and understand that she was not entitled to special treatment or privileges, and that she had to follow rules and respect others just like everyone else. I hope that she would learn from this experience and become a better person. But in the end, Karen was sentenced to probation, community service, and a mere 6 months in prison, and she was required to attend anger management classes. It was a far cry from the worst penalty I had hoped for, but it was still a significant disruption to her life and a reminder of the consequences of her entitlement and violent behavior. Hopefully, that'll do. When I was a freshman in college, I took my first office job working for a large company doing contract work for a partially owned subsidiary in the mobile phone industry. It was the 90s and the world of mobile phones was in its days of every local telco still being separate from the divestiture when they broke up Mobile. You had tons of available companies to choose from instead of the Big Four and their MVNOs. Coverage maps looked like someone sneezed on them instead of the coverage you had now. There was no data, no text, and 100 voice minutes was enough for most anybody. It was a wild west in telecom. The job paid well enough and the hours allowed me to go to my classes. That job was fairly easy. We were tasked with activating new accounts. This required us to run credit checks and collect deposits when necessary. In the spring and summer, things were relatively calm. The only rule that really upset me was that we were not allowed to read anything outside the company intranet during downtime, and this meant I couldn't knock out coursework. No big. Come November, they want us to work more and more overtime to ramp up for the upcoming holiday season. This I could not do as I was hanging on balancing a full course load in addition to working the requisite 40 hours. They instituted the demand for at least 10 hours overtime a week. We were a small part of the building as we took up less than half of one of the 4 floors, and were the only company there that was not a defense contractor. The contractors were all pretty cool, even if the MPs on floor 3 and 4 were a bit tough and they were nice to talk to on breaks. We had no room to expand. The office was also only open from 8 to 2. Because of the demand for overtime, they instituted desk sharing, but because they still didn't have enough desks, they couldn't seat everybody. I worked days and they wanted me to stay until 7 p.m. This meant that the person with whom I shared a desk that would normally start at 1 p.m. had no place to sit, and as they were also expected to work the overtime, so they would show up 2 hours early and sit in the break room until I left. I couldn't understand why they would pay this guy 2 hours of base pay and 2 hours overtime to sit in the break room and twiddle their thumbs, but they determined that would be better than having me get out on time. Eventually, I had to tell them I was quitting since I couldn't do the demanded overtime. I left and figured that was it. They called back 2 days after I left and asked if I would come back to work. I said I would on the condition that I would not be expected to work the overtime, and they said we would talk about it when I came back in. I showed up and they pulled me aside and said that they still needed me to do the overtime. I told them that it was impossible and that there was no point in having asked me back if I had to work it. We were at an impasse, so I quit for the second time within a week. The company started asking for more and more overtime for the remaining employees. A bunch of those folks had families, and it was to their delight that they were then being offered hundreds of dollars in bonuses for breaking certain overtime thresholds. Their kids would have the best holidays of their lives. Cars were being paid off early, and down payments for mortgages were racking up. Come January, the overtime is gone as there was no need for it. People are settling back into their former routines and payday arrives. From my friends that stayed working there, they said that the envelopes were opened and there were audible gasps coming from across the floor. Paychecks were being issued for $0 to a large number of employees. One got a paycheck for 15 cents. The shock quickly turns to anger and the floor erupts. Management came out and addressed everybody and told them that the bonuses they offered were not approved by the company and that the money had to be reclaimed. People were expected to work and collect checks for no money until the bonuses they were overpaid were paid back to the company, and that anybody that left would be sued by the company for the outstanding balance. They even told one guy that he was lucky enough to have a job there at all, since they normally only hired people with diplomas, and he was a dropout without a GED. A number of those employees were still friends and relayed all this to me. I had just started a new job working as a third-party support for a portion of the company to which I was previously contracted, and did night hours to coincide with my new classes. I asked if they minded if I referred some contacts to them if it would get this resolved, and they said it was fine. I then spoke with a few people that I knew was defense contractors who were able to refer me to friends they had that worked with the IRS, since they would be very interested. What with it kicking off a new tax here? I explained to the IRS what happened and provided them with the contact of my friends. 1 month later, after an investigation, the full force of the government came down upon the company. The IRS came in and demanded to speak with everyone that made the decision to withhold pay from employees to rescind the bonuses. It was eventually determined that everybody above a certain level was complicit in the scheme and will be held to account by being forced out and facing potential jail time. The company was informed that all the monies would be repaid to those from whom it was taken. Anybody that quit so they could get a job that would give them a paycheck in the meantime was to be offered their job back, and should they refuse to take it, would be issued full-time back pay from the date of their departure. They also determined that the company would either have to fire all those responsible, or the company would be responsible for penalties that were obscenely high. The company thought that they had their ace in the hole when they said that without managers being allowed to stay on, they would have to close the call center. They were informed that closing it was fine, since the final stipulation was that all employees that were not involved in a scam would either be offered a chance to move to the office they had a county over, or would be offered very generous severance packages. The company opted to move the employees and shut the call center. Plea bargains were made, and everyone but the offenders went home happy. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.